There we go. I thank Senators Tuberville and Britt for being here. I thank you all for being here. Everybody on this side of the panel will be saying y'all today, just to let you know that. We have problems with K through 12, pretty clear. 2/3 of U.S. public school students cannot read proficiently in fourth grade. 40% in fourth grade are essentially non-readers. Almost 2/3 of fourth graders, 3/4 of eighth graders below proficiency in math. Less than half of public school parents say their child is definitely prepared academically for 24-25 school year. 2/3 almost of business leaders say that recent graduates are unprepared for the workforce. It's important for the child, it's important for the family, it's important for the business owners, it makes it important for us all. Huge issue. So the primary and secondary education system is broken, and part of the problem may be that schools have lost sight of their core mission of education. The education establishment, driven by teachers' unions and special interests, is trapping children in status quo. Classroom instruction and the ins and outs of a school day have remained the same for decades. I visit my grandson at his school. It's the same as when I was in school 60 years ago, which I guess boys are boys, but still it seems like something should have changed. So funding and staffing has increased, but student achievement continues to decline. There's been technological advances and changes, but we're not sure we see them as much as we should. And pandemic-related school closures have exacerbated this decline, creating historic levels of learning loss. If there's ever a time to disrupt the status quo, the time is now. It should be without saying that schools should prepare a child for a successful future. It does not appear to be the case. Perhaps the solution would be more personalized learning to fit the student's need in the classroom. We'll understand that Umar will speak to this later. Parents, the most important educators in their child's life, need to be empowered and have a voice in a child's education. But in the current K through 12 system, many parents feel marginalized. Many forced to be bystanders in the raising of their own children or feel silenced by fear of retaliation from school leaders. In 2023, 72% of parents considered moving their child to a new school, a 35% increase from 2022. The failures of the traditional K through 12 system is driving more families to innovative school models like microschools, virtual schools, hybrid homeschooling, and charter schools that have proven to enhance student achievement. We'll hear from Heidi and Ruben on how non-traditional options are working for students and families. I think it's important to incentivize these innovative school models. Parents need more education options, not fewer. That's why I'm leading the Educational Choice for Children's Act. It would provide incentives for individuals and businesses to fund scholarship awards for students to cover expenses related to K-12 public and private education. The legislation would ensure that more students have access to the best educational opportunity, regardless of their zip code or their parents' income. By the way, innovation is not confined to just creating new school models. Many of our panelists today have made changes to how their schools operate or what students are learning that could be copied by any school. There are new technologies that can be harnessed to create new learning environments at low cost, which Steve will share with us. There are also new efforts to incorporate career learning into students' high school years that give them firsthand experience as preparation for the workforce, which Kelby will discuss. Thank you for being here. This is an important conversation. I think my colleagues, do you all have opening statements? Okay, Coach, you want to go first?
I'll do it.
Pull it closer to you.
I ran for this position was education. One of the main things. Most of you know that I've spent a lot of time. I spent 4 years in the classroom in high school level, and then I got into college. And man, has it changed over the years. It really has. You know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And we hadn't changed the way we've skinned cats in years, as the way I call it, in education. You got to move on with the times, because time's not going to wait on us. We found out a lot about our education system back during COVID, and I think a lot of our parents did, and we all learned something from it. You know, I spent a lot of my money, my own money, and plus the university's money at all the schools that I coached at, trying to get our kids back to a reading level that they should be when they got to universities. They made pretty well on their, obviously on their ACTs. They made well on some of the tests they took. They had the grades, supposedly, but they couldn't read the way they should be able to read. That's got to change. We got to teach our kids how to read, folks. I mean, if you can't do anything else, you got to be able to read because you can't learn, bottom line. Alabama has recognized a lot of these failures, I'll tell you that, and we've had a lot of talks about those since I've been here in the last 3.5 years. We've addressed some of those, and I think it's very obvious, if you know anything about Alabama, how we've changed some of our education. So glad today to have Reuben Morris here. Reuben, thanks for being here. Reuben founded the Alabama Aerospace and Aviation High School in Bessemer, Alabama. He knows better than most the struggles facing our education system. He's seen it firsthand, up close, and that's what it really takes most of the time. In recent years, we've been spending more and more money on education. Everybody thinks it's about money, and obviously it takes money to do a lot of things. We have to pay teachers, the best people that we can possibly get to teach our kids. That's very important, obviously, to the administrators. We shell out close to $1 trillion a year for public and elementary and secondary education in this country. $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. Close to $20,000 per student, more than anybody in the world, as we spend money on education per student. And for what? What are we getting for it? We better figure it out. One thing we know for sure, what we're doing in a lot of areas isn't working. Plenty of factors are contributing to that. We need to take a long, hard look at what exactly is failing our students. All of us need to work together to face the hard facts and start breaking away from the decades-old norms, as we all said, and Senator Cassidy said here, he's a lot older than I am, by the way, but things hadn't changed, have not changed, and you've got to change with the times. Our task today is clear. We need to dig deeper into underlying issues holding our students back from success. We need to analyze what the federal government is doing to impede progress and innovation. And we need to come together to figure out how to change the status quo forward, not the same and not backwards. Something's got to change. All that being said, we'll have a few questions for our panelists here in just a moment, but we'll turn it over to my cohort, Senator Britt. Is that right?
But before she starts, I want to compliment Senator Tuberville. When I was trying to get him to stay on the HELP committee, he said we would if we addressed education, because that was a passion of his. I'm not the chair. We've not really addressed it because we've not held hearings on it, but I appreciate that was his motivation. And if I am the chair next Congress, that will change.
Knock on wood.
There you go. There you go. Mr. hopefully soon-to-be chairman, and my distinguished colleague from Alabama, thank you both for the work that you do in this arena. Both of you have been outspoken on a number of things, trying to help change what's possible for the next generation, and incredibly grateful for that. Appreciate you putting this panel together, and certainly appreciate all of you for taking time to be in front of us today to talk about the important work that you're doing to help give us insight into ways that we can help children, all walks of life, how we can make sure we close the gap between the have and the have-nots, and that we can give everyone access to a high-quality education. I believe education is the pathway out of poverty. It is the key to unlocking the American dream, and you all are being innovators. You all are digging in, and you all are changing what's possible for the young men and women that you work with. So I appreciate it and look forward to hearing from you today. I would like to extend a special welcome to Mr. Morris, who I know is obviously an Alabama native from Birmingham, Alabama, graduated from Shades Valley High School, a Morehouse graduate, amongst many things. I know your passion probably stemming from your time with Teach for America, but you came home, and we are so grateful that you came home and that you're working so diligently to make a difference. And your establishment of the Alabama Aerospace and Aviation High School in Bessemer that opened a little bit over 2 years ago is a game changer for that community, and I look forward to hearing more about it. I know a number of you also have a presence in Alabama. We have the Cristo Rey Network School, the Holy Family Cristo Rey Catholic High School that opened in Birmingham in 2007, and we have a micro school in Prattville, the Level Up School of Innovation that is affiliated with the KaiPod Learning. And I know that Victory XR has partnered with a number of colleges and universities in our state and does some really great work with Marengo County Public Schools. Mr. Grubb, thank you very much for what you're doing there. Thank you for all of you for what the work you're doing in Alabama and across the nation. I really believe that no child zip code should determine their opportunity, and the work that you're doing is making that a reality and also showing that one size does not fit all. Parents and families know best, and they should be in control of their child's education, whether that be through utilizing their local traditional public schools, a charter school, a public magnet school, a private school, a trade school, or other options that are available. Prioritizing educational freedom nationwide would unlock the American dream for millions of children, including communities across the great state of Alabama. I'll continue to be a vocal advocate for educational freedom that equips families to make important decisions to help their children achieve their full potential and secure a bright future. Finally, I think it's important that the states continue to play a central role in education policy around the country. In my own state, as Senator Tuberville has already mentioned, I'm particularly proud of the work that we have done in recent years via the enactment of the Alabama Literacy Act and the Alabama Numeracy Act to improve educational outcomes for children in our state and serve as a model for others around the country. Again, I appreciate your work that is being done, and I certainly look forward to hearing more from each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't we start down here with you, Steve? I'm sure that you brought each of us our complimentary VR headsets. And I think each of you have like 5 minutes if you can, and we'd like to leave some time for questions. Please.
Great, thank you. So I want to talk about
Steve, introduce yourself. I could introduce you, but you can do it quicker, and I don't want to lose our time as regards the time for questioning. So just introduce yourself, please.
Steve Grubbs, CEO and co-founder of Victory XR. Formerly, I was in the Iowa legislature and chaired the House Education Committee and spent a lot of time back in the day trying to improve education, which got me on this path. So I want to talk about 4 things real quick. We work a lot with virtual reality. This is the best headset for schools on the market. But I also have on today my Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses. And throughout the day, as I walk about, I have a constant conversation with my AI assistant. And it's a powerful tool. And one thing that we need to know is that no matter what people think about AI, it will be an integral part of our lives moving forward. And
So you can wear that. I just got to ask. And see Tommy Tuberville and say, what was his record and all?
only the ice bowl. It's the glasses. They have a camera. I'll take a photo and video, and I could broadcast this live on Instagram if I wanted to. But, I have a phone, I listen to my music, I say, hey, Meta, call whomever, don't call. So it's pretty cool. And it's going to be integrated. Everybody's coming out with their glasses now, Apple, everybody else. But here's what's important. With AI, the knowledge in these things.
Make sure MetaView is active.
Sorry, it's talking to me. Yeah, I shouldn't have.
This headset right here, I've seen my 14-year-old son with
Yeah.
something very similar and doing all kinds of
Exactly.
things.
And I'm going to talk about that with providing hands-on training for carpentry and welding and all that. But here's the thing with AI, whether we're talking about OpenAI or Grok, which is Elon's, or Gemini with Google, or Llama with Meta, they're all built on these large language models. And the information that goes into these large language models defines what we will know as a society, whether we like it or not. And it's important. The U.S. leads in this race to win in AI, but it's important that we don't make policy decisions that negatively impact that, because if the U.S. doesn't win, then the large language models that we get our information from won't contain things like Tiananmen Square or other sensitive topics that governments will censor. So if we want a free knowledge large language model, the United States has to continue to be the leader. So that's number one. Number two, AI gives us the power to provide personalized learning like never before. Our leading partner in the world of immersive learning is Morehouse College, and they were the world's first metaversity, so they would do class, they still do class in VR, and nobody's ahead of them, not Stanford, not Harvard, no one else. They lead the world in this space. Dr. Musina Morris, Dr. Ovell Hamilton, other professors at Morehouse. So we are now trying to level the playing field with Chrome browser-based AI, where we are working together to build a tutoring center that is available to everybody. If you think about it, if you're an upper middle income family or an upper income, you can afford to hire expensive tutoring centers when your kids fall behind that cost thousands of dollars. But what about everybody else? How do we bring that equity? And so Morehouse College is our partner in that. Two other quick points. We need more tradespeople in the world, people that can work with their hands. And this is where Marengo County Schools and others come into play. If you want people to learn how to use their hands and tools, it's just like an airline pilot, right? Nobody wants an airline pilot who hasn't successfully passed their simulation tests, right? Same thing with driving a forklift or a medical assistant, a nursing assistant, drone operators. It can all be done hands-on in virtual reality, and that's what Marengo County Schools is doing, and we are fortunate to be working with them. The final thing I would say is this. A lot of AI that's being delivered is being delivered through chatbots, which require students to type in questions, type in answers, all of that type of thing, correspond through text. If you can't read well, you can't write well, then you are excluded from that learning. So AI, to be successful, needs to be conversational, and it needs to be visual. And when we accomplish that, we'll succeed. I'll stop there and take questions later.
Hey, Ruben, is those meta glasses you got on?
These are not meta glasses, Coach. But listen, I'm so excited that to sit next to Steve. He basically hit a lot of my points by highlighting Morehouse and talking about pilots. And I'm really humbled to be here. It's a privilege to be able to address our fine state senators in Alabama. But I really want to talk about what's possible in K-12 and how disruption is happening in a small little town right outside of Birmingham called Bessemer. And Alabama Aerospace and Aviation High School was birthed out of a dream deferred personally for me. Around the time that Coach Tuberville came and spoke at my high school football banquet, I wanted to be a pilot. And unfortunately, the only option for me was to go to the military. But when you have asthma, it's a bit of challenges sometimes in enlisting. So it became a dream deferred until right around the pandemic. You talked earlier about COVID and how that showed us a lot about education, but also showed us a lot about our economy. And I noticed that there were a ton of planes that were piled up at the Birmingham airport, and I did a little homework and realized that there was a pilot shortage. The more research I did, I realized there was an even greater aircraft mechanic shortage. And I looked at the public school options in Alabama, and I'll be the first to admit, as a native, that we've had some challenges. But I view that as an opportunity and decided, what if I created something that could provide a space where it's safe to be smart for kids, but also could provide a skilled workforce to fuel the state of Alabama, where we are already top 5 in the nation in aerospace and defense. And that's where the idea of Alabama Aerospace and Aviation High School came about. And I have the privilege to serve our champions. We don't call them students anymore, we call them champions, and guide them down clear pathways that lead to not only a job, but an actual career. And that's what I want to focus on in my few minutes, is to talk about career-connected learning, industry-specific focus. I grew up in a time where, learning a trade or anything outside of just going to college was almost frowned upon. But the reality is every household can't afford college, but everyone can contribute to society and earn a living and take care of their family. And there's also ways for students and young adults to get skills that are meaningful. And in particular, our goal at AAHS is to ensure that every one of our pathways, aircraft maintenance, aviation, computer science, STEM, even those students that are interested in cybersecurity have an opportunity to earn a credential before they graduate. We have one pathway, our aerospace engineering pathway, where kids are actually arriving on campus calculus ready. That reduces the cost that is spent in terms of remediating students in high school. But we can't do this by ourselves. It's important that we pulled in partners. So is that bell for me? Oh, okay, sorry. So we partner with industry, the FAA, Delta Airlines, Republic, United, Southwest Airlines, and bring our college partners to bear, Auburn, Alabama, and Tuskegee, and figure out how can we come together and create opportunities for kids and families that are transformative to give them real world learning experiences while they're in high school. To date, I have 5 student pilots that are getting ready to graduate in the spring that will graduate with their private pilot's license. I have to check the numbers, but we have at least 10 to 12 drone pilots. We have a drone soccer team, and most people are like, huh? It's worth a Google when you get a second. But this is early exposure to opportunities for kids that will lead to real careers in STEM fields. When we look at where the world is headed in terms of drones, our first responders are the primary users of drones right now. Our military, our firefighters, our police officers are utilizing drones. And there's a tremendous need as transportation even heads in that direction. So really what I want to leave with this committee is the understanding that for so long in history, becoming a pilot was for one segment of people that had the resources to do it. But now is the time to create these opportunities for any student so that no longer dreams have to be deferred. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amar Kumar, and I'm the founder and CEO of K-12 Learning. Thank you, Senators, for the opportunity to speak to this committee. Public education is one of America's greatest achievements. It has been the cornerstone of opportunity for hundreds of millions of families, including my own. But the last great innovations in education came more than 100 years ago. And in a world where technology, healthcare, and commerce have all been revolutionized, we're still educating our kids with the same outdated model. It should be no surprise that educational outcomes are dropping, parents are dissatisfied, and teachers are quitting. The status quo is clearly no longer working, and we need a new approach. At K-12 Learning, we believe that parents want more choices and that America's teachers are going to be the ones to create them. We are on a mission to help 1 million teachers create 1 million new schools in the next decade. We inspire and support these teachers to start their own microschools, which are small learning environments that deliver a personalized education experience and a close-knit community. Each microschool may have 10 to 15 students and focuses on providing the individualized instruction that each child deserves. We help these teachers see themselves as microschool founders, and we give them the tools and the confidence to start a microschool for their community. We enable these founders to focus on the teaching and the learning while our support takes care of the operational side of running a school. And the teachers who start microschools, well, they believe deeply that education should adapt to the needs of the child, not the other way around. And the great thing about microschools is that it's a model that works everywhere. In rural America, where small communities need more choice. In urban America, where underserved neighborhoods need new pathways. And in suburban America, where parents are seeking alternatives that align better with their child's needs. I believe school choice is a rising tide that lifts all boats. When we support teachers to start new schools, all schools have to start competing for parents. When schools start competing for parents, those parents feel empowered to choose the right option for their child. And when a child is in the right option for them, they are better prepared for the world of tomorrow. The American spirit of entrepreneurship has affected every segment of our economy except education. At KaiPod Learning, we know it's time for the millions of teachers to become the change they wish to see in the world. And so we work to inspire more teachers to create more schools so that more parents may choose the right option for their child. And so together we may unlock the next chapter in the American dream. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Heidi Vasiloff, and I'm with Great Hearts America/Nova, and we'll explore that a little bit. 14 years ago, I was looking for a school for my children, and I visited way more schools than I should have, and found Great Hearts. Great Hearts is a classical school in Arizona. We have 25 schools in Arizona. We have 15 in Texas, one in Louisiana, and one coming hopefully soon to Texas. These are brick and mortar schools. Within the year I was teaching there, I had no intention of doing that, but love it. It's as a science teacher. And as I went through the program, I read a book ahead of each of my children so I could see what they were reading. And I realized I wish that I'd had an education like that. I grew up in a really small town in Arizona, 1 square mile, 3 sides is an Indian reservation. And what an opportunity would have been provided had I had that access. So the question is, what if? What if we could offer this to everyone? And how could we disrupt, I'll use your theme here, education in a positive way? Great Hearts Schools right now have a significant wait list in our organization for the brick and mortar schools, which are located in cities, because that's what can support a charter school system. We're a charter school system. Well, now fast forward to the pandemic, and Great Hearts had been toying with the idea of an online school, and we decided to jump in. And at the same time, I was moving with my family to a different state, and I took on the challenge of working in the online environment. And I wasn't sure if classical ed or traditional education might work in this. I wasn't sure if families were going to be interested. But again, I kept going back to what if? What if somebody was seeking this? How could we give it to anyone who wanted to come? Brick and mortar schools are expensive to build. They're a lot to maintain, and they're also limited by location. So fast forward to where we are now, and we are a traditional school. We don't have cell phones, but we're online. How does that work, right? How does it work to be an online school in that? Well, we've dedicated teachers who are committed to being in relationship with their students, to challenging them, to being in that space where they can engage in great ideas, in great books. They can tutor and support. We also believe that our children should read books, not be on the computer all day long. They should have books that they work in. They should go outside and do science experiments. They should do art. They should create art, and they should enjoy music. Collaboration is crucial in this environment, especially in the online environment, because it's a 3-tiered approach now, right? Much of what you've heard here, it's the parent, the child, and the teacher now in a very, very essential relationship. We work closely with them because the families know what their children are learning because they're engaging in it every day with them, alongside them. We also value accessibility and flexibility. How many times have you not gone to see grandma, or not gone to a soccer game, or not been able to travel because you didn't want to miss those days of school? Well, in an online environment, you can do that. You can continue to learn. You can learn from wherever you are. And that is a beautiful continuation of a child's learning. So they're not disrupted in their learning. And they have the ability to continue, and the teacher has an ability to not lose time. As a teacher, it was always terrible when somebody was out for 2 weeks, because you're like, oh, what have they missed? How do I get them caught up? And this partnership allows us to do that. We believe that education should be a choice for parents. We think that parents should be integral in choosing the way and who they want to be engaging with. We believe that we have engaging, knowledgeable teachers that we've been able to select to be part of the organization, that they're having great conversations. But more than that, we believe in the formation of a child. We are engaging in the formation. We want them to seek things that are true, that are good, and that are beautiful. And that has to be the core of what we're doing in a classical education. We foster collaboration at every level, and we believe in having a challenging curriculum. We believe in teaching them to read, but we also think that they should read things that are worthy of reading. And we believe that they should be engaging in source material for history, so they understand what the founders were really seeking. All of these things are important to us. We are dedicated to the formation of children, and we're dedicated to doing it both in brick and mortar and online. And I'll close with a really quick little story. One of the things that I love the most is when I had the privilege of teaching a 6th grade class this last year, and I got the little videos from the children, and one was dissecting a squid. And he delighted in this at his table, and you could see all of his siblings around and enjoying that. And then we find out that the neighbors had all come over to be part of that engaging learning environment. It works, and it's exciting. So what if every child in America had access to the education that they deserved? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator, and good afternoon. I am Kelby Woodard. I'm the president and CEO of the Cristo Rey Network of High Schools. We have 40 high schools in 25 states, serving 13,000 students. We are a Catholic college prep work-study program exclusively for kids who can't afford that. So you can make too much money and not be accepted into a Cristo Rey school. 30 years ago, in a small little neighborhood of Pilsen in Chicago, a group of individuals wanted to reverse a trend. And that trend was schools closing in communities that needed them the most. And so Father John Foley, Father Jim Gartland, Father Brad Schaefer said, let's start a Catholic college prep school in this community. And everybody said, that's crazy. We're closing those schools because we can't afford them. So they came up with an idea to have our students earn their education. So this corporate work study program, if you fast forward 30 years now, has had 26,000 students go through it. And while we have a very rigorous college prep education, and most of our kids will be the first in their families ever to attend college when they graduate from Cristo Rey, this corporate work study program is truly disruptive. And to prove it, imagine putting 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids in the corporate environment. That's disruptive. But an amazing thing happens when you do that. These kids have become more poised. They have become more confident. And not only that, they have access to aspirations they never knew existed. And when you're a 16-year-old kid in Richmond working in a cancer center to earn your education, the world is your oyster. When you are a student at Holy Family Cristo Rey in Birmingham, and you're part of Cristo Rey Creates, which is an organization they created that's a marketing group and a podcasting group, you learn what it means to be an entrepreneur. You understand that the corporate halls are not locked to you like everybody tells you they are. You have opportunity. And that's really the magic, that's really the piece of Cristo Rey that is truly disruptive. But as you mentioned in your opening statement, Senator Tuberville, you constantly have to look at what's next. And so while this model has worked extremely well for 30 years, post-COVID, the way we work has changed. So we've had to adjust to that. So we have hybrid approaches where students may work partially from a remote location part of their career, and the other part, they may have to be at work. And that's a struggle, and that's different. So we've had to change and become much more innovative and creative in our own way. But the other thing that happens is these corporations that our kids work at, they also have an opportunity to walk alongside these kids and learn from them and learn their stories, and it changes their minds, and it opens their minds to what other people are experiencing in the same community in which they live. And that's powerful. That's a social fabric. And just like Steve, I served in a House, in the Minnesota House of Representatives, And like you, I was very frustrated on the House Education Finance Committee because I heard really well-meaning people talk about things that were very frustrating to them and why the education system was not working for our kids. And in 2012, I was the chief author of a similar bill, Senator Cassidy, but much smaller, the Education Opportunity Scholarship Bill in Minnesota, which was the first education opportunity bill to pass both the Minnesota House and the Senate in the history of the state of Minnesota, only to be negotiated out of the bill, as happens. But the students from Cristo Rey Twin Cities requested to testify on behalf of the bill in committee. And on that day, as happens, the House session went late. And at 10 o'clock at night, it was my job to go tell these students that they had to go home. And they refused. They insisted to have their voices heard. So I had the House photographer videotape their testimony and showed it to the committee on the next day. And that's when I decided that I wanted to be a part of Cristo Rey. And in 2014, when they decided to open a school in Dallas, I became the founding president of the school in Dallas and left the House and sold a couple of companies I had started. And now, 11 years later, I get to be the chief cheerleader of these students, of these kids who are working in law firms in Los Angeles, these kids who are working at commercial real estate companies in Dallas, and then going on to colleges that they'd never heard of before and changing the trajectory of their lives. So thank you for making this part of the national conversation, Senators, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Senator Cassidy. Steve, what kind of, you have any problems with the teachers and the education leaders with what you're coming up with here?
You know, there's a big concern that our work in AI could replace human teachers. And while we do believe that AI will do a lot of the teaching, we don't think it can replace the human element. It will be understanding, but we believe that, but that's really the primary concern we run up against. With this, just getting teachers to do something that they haven't done before, you don't want it just sitting in a closet, and sometimes that happens.
Amar, you got anything to add with that one?
Yeah, with the whole concept of a micro school, teachers have a lot more flexibility. So we definitely see teachers who are embracing technology, including headsets, including AI in new ways. And one of them made a really interesting statement that we shouldn't be afraid of AI replacing teachers. In the future, it will be people who teach with AI and the people who teach without AI. And the only ones who are going to get replaced are the latter. And so that's what we start to see is in microschooling where the constraints of the traditional systems have been removed, teachers all of a sudden have this new spirit that comes up. And that spirit shows up in how students learn, in how they teach, and how parents get involved.
Ruben, public-private relationships, how's that going?
It's absolutely fundamental. I would like to see more of it. We utilize local companies a lot. I think of our relationship with Pinnacle Aerospace, which is located at EKY, which is the best municipal airport, as well as the Birmingham Flight Center. Without these two local businesses, our students would not get the flight training and aircraft maintenance training that's necessary, not only for them to reach their goals, but also to facilitate the FAA workforce development grant that we have. Our higher education partnerships extend both on the two-year college level, great leadership from Lawson State Community College, all the way up to Alabama, Auburn, and Tuskegee, as our students have pathways to those schools if they want to go, but also they keep us on the cutting edge in terms of what our kids are learning in the classroom.
How do you afford insurance for flight training, you know, for a school like yours?
I have to go raise a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
Very expensive, right?
it is. It's about $10,000 to $12,000 for a kid to get a private pilot's license. That insurance is carried by our industry partners. Of course, the school has its own general liability and things that are necessary. But we've had philanthropists that generously set up endowments so that our kids can fly, and we found economic ways to do it by chunking their learning over the summer. We launched our very first solo flight academy this past summer, where kids actually flew for 14 consecutive days. So our kids have a lot of skin in the game. They work really hard.
Mr. Woodard, recruiting for your 40 schools, do you do that? You market? How do you do that?
A lot of it has to do with word of mouth, right? It's the reputation that you have in the marketplace.
Success always
Success, right.
prevails.
Success breeds success. That's right, sir. And, you know, families want to see their kids succeed. And when they see them in a corporate environment, when they get to go up to the office with them on a Sunday up to the 18th floor in downtown Chicago, the whole family experiences that success with their son or daughter, and that's infectious. And the community learns about it, and that's how best we recruit students in our communities.
Heidi, is word of mouth in school choice? Have you answered a lot of questions, a lot of other parents?
Yes, there's a lot of word of mouth, especially in the urban areas of Phoenix and in the Texas areas. We also, so we are charter, but we also in our online program, we're supporting ESA and a private model as well. So lots of word of mouth, lots of recruitment, but certainly success is the number one thing. They can see that our students are successful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm going to piggyback off of what Coach Tuberville just said. Ruben, when you're looking at these public-private partnerships, and you just referenced a number of them, which are really exciting, what was your biggest challenge in pursuing those partnerships? Like, what do you think that we need to know was probably an impediment to you being able to forge those?
Well, when you think about the larger airlines, a lot of them are risk averse, and that's just the reality. They wanted to see, like, hey, how long have you been around, and you know what is you know, your track record, and so that's important. What has been helpful is to attach ourselves to our university partners, and so when you think about Auburn School of Aviation, when you the leadership like Dr. Whitty, who already had established relationships with the major airlines, it's easier to get an introduction to pilot recruiters at United Airlines when you've got a strong university partner. What I also want to really emphasize is that many of our industry partners are already seeing that waiting to recruit in college is too late. You have to start as early as middle school to, number one, expose kids to different career opportunities, but also invest. And we saw, even with the cybersecurity school in Alabama, where Raytheon made a significant investment in that school. And we see that happening as Bloomberg Philanthropies is considering investing in HBCU charter school partnerships across the state of Alabama that are going to be critical. I think that particularly with career-connected learning, it does not work without deep investment from industry partners, and both programming, both innovation, but also even in brick and mortar. A lot of the challenges that public schools face, particularly if you're stepping out to be innovative, is that you're hamstrung by building costs and facilities and things. And so as we think about, you know, what's next and how we can support, you know, my school right now sits in a 100-year-old building. And our students go and watch other students go new state-of-the-art facilities, but we're still struggling to attract kids and do innovative things and bring expensive technology, and we sit and fix roof leaks on the regular.
And actually, let's expand that question to everybody very quickly, because I know we have, we're short on time. But what would you say as policymakers we need to be aware of that is maybe the biggest impediment to you creating a conducive environment for your type of school to grow and flourish? And it could be everything from building costs to maybe even, you know, laws or regulation.
Sure. I would start with, you know, we have 2,700 corporate partners across the country that employ our students. And every year, we're always conscious of local, state laws regarding labor, right? And we have 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old students working in the workplace. And so we're always looking at how do we ensure that we're following the laws and that our work-study program is designed properly for those laws. And recently, the Department of Labor is part of our regulatory agency that looks at it every year. And so that process ensures that we follow it from a federal level, but we're always worried about state and local laws too around that.
Thank you. Heidi?
Yeah, I think for the online program in the charter system, we have to test, we do state testing, and this year we had 26 individual testing sites that we had to find and manage and maintain and make sure they had technology. So that's one thing in particular. I think the other thing is access to technology and internet that's stable, and those are some barriers for us.
The biggest barrier in our space is it's not a level playing field. If a teacher is starting a new school and it's competing with a free public school, it's really difficult to really reach all segments of the population. So laws like the ECCA or the education savings accounts that are coming up in many of your states, those help level the playing field. And so if a teacher wants to start a school, he or she can have families use those local dollars in order to fund that school, so more families can afford them.
I'd like to echo that as well. In the state of Alabama, public charter schools oftentimes don't have access to the same funding as their traditional public counterparts, and particularly if you're starting a new school, there's a lot of upfront costs, just like starting any other business. One of the ways that, from a policy standpoint, to think about this is how can
The
we
soon-to-be chairman has just told me I'm out of time. I am so sorry. Steve, do you mind, real quick? Would you allow me to conclude this? Steve?
5 seconds.
15 seconds, 10 seconds. Innovation-friendly states, unfriendly states, what the federal government can do is tie innovation to Title I dollars.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, from innovation in AI to, like you said, dreams don't have to be deferred, to empowering parents, to you don't need 4 walls to make a school, to the social fabric of the community. I mean, y'all are the real deal. We appreciate it.
Senator Ernst?
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today and allowing us the opportunity to discuss some of these really innovative models in this type of forum today. So we're grateful for the work that you do. And Senator Cassidy, thank you for being such a champion on this and for convening this panel today. It's really important. I do think we need to arm our parents with the best possible options for their children and set them up for long-term success. And all of you know and understand, and I hope many people that will be watching or listening to this panel later on, I hope they understand that every child has unique abilities and skill sets, and that not a one-size-fits-all model is the right approach to making sure that these children are successful in the long run. So I am pleased to say that Iowa, the great state of Iowa, with our governor, has been very forward-leaning on making sure that we have unique school choice models. And we've seen great success in the last several years in the Iowa legislature. So, of course, I'm going to start with Steve Grubbs. And Steve, thank you so much for the great work that you have done for our state of Iowa and for what you are doing right now as well. I am very, very appreciative. So can you speak to the ways virtual reality can supplement in-person learning and the applicability it may have in future professions? Maybe there are things that we're not wrapping our minds around right now, but how can you apply it for professions that may exist in 2, 4, 10 years from now?
Yeah, I'll expand on what I said in my remarks, in that these glasses, these are AI glasses, and of course we have our VR headset. And so the hardware is just getting better and better. And so really, if you want a student to have a world-class chemistry lab at their school, you're going to have to spend $100,000 to $300,000. Very few schools can do that. Private schools, cadaver labs, most can't afford a cadaver lab. But within this world, you can build a cadaver lab that's affordable at every university, every college. You can build a chemistry lab that, it's not just the suburb schools that have them. Now, every school, regardless of cost, can have access to these hands-on tools in biology and chemistry. They can stand on the Great Wall of China. They can go to the Redwood Forest. They can stand on the bridge in Selma and walk to Montgomery, Alabama without leaving their classroom. This is the hope, and it extends into career training, whether it's welding or carpentry or drones or whatever the case might be. So we have a lot of hope for this, and we're glad that we've been able to build this company out of Davenport, Iowa.
I'm so thankful. Yes, thank you for doing that, Steve. And then I guess then with that, you can really take that technology, and even today as we're sitting, we're using or thinking about technology that doesn't necessarily even exist today, and we're planning ahead for jobs that we have no idea what's going to be out there in another 10 years. But this makes it possible to move rapidly as those things come about, correct?
5 more seconds.
Yes.
Shortly, every one of us will have our own AI learning assistant that travels with us through life. And as knowledge changes, that training, it starts with the phone, but you know what? We're all going to be wearing smart glasses.
Oh, man.
Will it have a
Yeah,
golf swing?
love it.
It might.
Will it teach me to golf? Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Steve, for being here. And Mr. Morris, again, I'm just going to keep building on this. So you brought those unique STEM opportunities to Alabama through the Alabama Aerospace and Aviation School. And so you've talked a little bit about your students and the vision you have for the school's long-term success, especially in the aviation field, working with major airlines and so forth. But let's take a little different twist to this, because I served in the military, many friends. I served in an aviation unit in the Iowa Army National Guard. I was not a pilot. I was a support personnel, but for those that have an interest in the military, there are a lot of STEM opportunities in the military, including aviation. Is it anything that you have thought about in assisting with military recruitment, military retention, being a feeder program for those that want to be pilots, maybe for the Navy, for the Army, so forth?
Great question, Senator, and you're absolutely correct. We have an established relationship with the Civil Air Patrol there at the Bessemer Airport, and many of our students, particularly in the aviation pathway, have aspirations to become military pilots. We've had recruiters from all of the branches, and including Space Force, that are interested in our students. And I've had conversations with the Army about their desire to see every soldier be a drone pilot. When you think about the dangers of a combat scenario, if you could send a drone ahead of you to survey the area before you go in, you mitigate risk. Mm-hmm. And so there's a mention that I made earlier about first responders being the primary users of drones right now. Even our local police departments, like the Hoover Police Department is very close by, they utilize drones. At the Bessemer Airport, we're actually building a drone cage in partnership with the University of Alabama, as well as Representative Terry Sewell, Congresswoman Sewell, who helped to facilitate that our students are going to use for research and search and rescue practices. And so my hope is that any number of our students that are interested in serving their country get that opportunity, but actually are competitive on the ASVAB, are ready to make that decision and come in skilled to actually lead when they arrive.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. Hey, thank you all very much. Great panel. I love the bad cleanup because that way I kind of get to pick on people's brains from what they've learned. I've learned from them to now pick your brains. Steve, how much does this cost, man? So he's got a micro school. He's got a micro school of 10 students, 15 students, and the teacher's really good, but she doesn't teach physics. I could see this kind of working with kind of a, VR, somebody coming and teaching physics. But they have to be able to afford this. So what is this cost?
Yeah, so it's dramatically affordable. In South Carolina, the state paid to have their students tutored through VR. So students come in, learning loss students come in, and they hop in a classroom with other students across the state, and there's a live teacher in the room tutoring them. So,
Now, there's an economy of scale there, so I'm trying to think, he and I are trying to think of how to enable you guys. So let's go back to the micropod. The state of South Carolina is this, and the micropod is that.
So here's the range. A license is as little as $8 per student per year.
Does that include the equipment?
Nope. Equipment, this is $300 to $500. So it's less, this cost me $1,200, $500. So, you know, it's not free, but it's extremely affordable.
Okay,
And
hang on,
then-
because I just got 5 minutes, I'm gonna hold myself to it. I was thinking, you've got a school, but one of the children wants to learn Mandarin, and another wishes to learn French. But you got a teacher, however talented she could be Thomas Jefferson on steroids, and yet, you know, is she gonna be able to pull that off? So how do y'all manage that, number one? And number two, is anybody doing the VR stuff to augment, if you will?
There are now hundreds of curriculum.
Is your clicker on?
It's on, yeah. There are now hundreds of online curriculum options now for languages, advanced physics, advanced mathematics, where kids can buy a course and take that course while they're at the micro school.
I see, so it's a micropod, but that doesn't limit their instruction to that which is in the teacher's brain, but rather it can be, she's almost, if you will, as what do they say, turning the classroom upside down.
Yeah. And taken to the extreme, every child can be in the curriculum that's right for them. Every parent can choose their own curriculum for their child. So you could have a bunch of 15-year-olds sitting together, but some of them are doing college-level courses, some of them might be doing junior high courses, but they're all learning together using technology.
So your teachers are more of a orchestra conductor.
We like to say coach. Yeah, they're a learning coach.
That's great. Now, Ruben, I'm just again interested in the business model, and I was, conferring with my chief educational assistants. Do y'all use any Perkins money to help pay for some of what you're doing?
We do. We apply for state and federal CTE funds, you know, every year as our enrollment grows, access to those funds will as well. But we found a way to actually utilize VR. It was probably about a $20,000 investment, and that got us a class set plus a curriculum that we utilize for mathematics for VR. But it's also an opportunity for this technology to be used with our aircraft maintenance training, utilizing augmented reality for kids to actually work on engines that we couldn't afford. And so it does take a lot of federal grants, a lot of federal funds. Again, I mentioned that we have FAA funding that will sunset soon. But we've also determined kind of an economy of scale to figure out what we can afford, what's reasonable in terms of scaling, and how this can be replicated.
Sounds great.
Yep.
For whatever reason, I can't believe I'm the only person I forgot to put the timer on for. The privilege of being the chair. And Kelby and Heidi, first, Heidi, it almost seems oxymoronic for a classical education to be using VR.
Yes, and I would say we were not using VR yet, but we are online. And so that's because, again, you're in community, even though you're in a Zoom room, right? You're still having conversations. But we do have, yes, so VR is coming. Like they said, everything's coming.
And to Kelby, I'll start with you on this one, and then I'll finish up this way. I'm very interested in the topic of dyslexia. And one of the kind of issues that people have, the critics of charters, I'm a big supporter of charters, is that charters, they don't acknowledge that some charters might specialize in something like dyslexia, but they say, no, the charters are not taking the more difficult to teach students. And so respond to that, Kelby, and then I'll let Heidi finish up.
Yeah, so Cristo Rey, we're not charter schools, we're private schools. But how I'd respond to that is most of our students are starting 2 or 3 grade levels behind when they start with us because their educational experience has not been great in the communities that we operate in. And so we do a lot of work with them on the academic side over the summers. We have longer school days, longer school years to catch them up from a college prep standpoint. And it's really important to us. Now, if we have students that are 4 or 5 grade levels behind, putting them through a college prep program that also requires a corporate work study component to it, those students are not able to be served by Cristo Rey at this point.
We're a K-12 system, and we're a full-up charter, which means that we are fully a public school in Arizona and Texas, so that we have all the supports, everything from dyslexia through SPED, through all of that. And we're really proud of the growth that we see in our students. And I would say that in many ways, our scholars, because we're a little bit more traditional and a little bit more structured, many of those scholars really thrive in our environment. So I've heard that argument as well, and I would say it's simply not true, that we serve all, whoever's next on the list gets to come to our school.
Well, thank you all. Amar, one more thing, I'll just finish with you. The fact that the teacher is the conductor more than the kind of traditional teacher, I presume you would say what they have said, that if there's a student who learns differently, you could have a curriculum specific for them?
In fact, neurodivergent students with dyslexia, ADHD, autism, they form the greatest portion of students who come to microschools because they are just not being served by traditional education. Yes.
I really appreciate the disruption that you are doing in your respective spheres. And I appreciate the fact that you would share that with us, not just for us, but obviously others are hearing from you. And what we're trying to do is propagate success for children. So thank you for thinking about children being successful.